Hey everyone, I am the TheChosenOneLegend here, as always joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kai, also known as Fascurreyn.
And welcome back to the BunchaJokahs podcast, where we talk Nintendo and other gaming news from the past month. And it's kind of a surprising amount of little bits that I've added up, especially considering they released the Indian direct partner showcase the day before we recorded this, which is perfect timing really.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I feel like usually they announce that the day after we've recorded, so I'll certainly take it. But yeah, we've got some interesting bits to go into here, and of course we talk about games we've been playing at the end, and you can find timestamps in the description below to jump about any of those sections. But let's get things started with the first segment of the podcast, Can't Have a Podcast Without News, baby, where we go over the news highlights, and let's start things off with a very interesting one. We got another trailer for Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, which this game continues to surprise me with how it's merging 2D and 3D Zelda elements into a 2D game. Because there's horse riding, there's moving objects around like sort of magnesis, there's outfits, and it's kind of impressive how much they're putting into it, right, Guy?
Yeah, I definitely watched the trailer longer than 5 minutes ago, so I've got a fresh memory of it now at least. It looks really good. Like I was saying before, I really like how it has such a strong classic Zelda feel. But then you open up the menu and it's like, oh, there's a side quest menu here.
Yeah.
That was never in an old game, but that's just a thing now. It's got all the 3D sort of stuff like Link's Awakening. So Link's Awakening was always kind of like a 3D vibe in the way that you explore the world, and now this game is able to fully sort of realise that, both in visuals and also in the gameplay mechanics. Just everything about it looks really, really intriguing, and I'm very curious how sort of old Zelda loyalists, perhaps people who really don't like Breath of the Wild, will see this. I wonder what their reception to be. I mean, it's a weird group of people, that lot, nonetheless, but I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I mean, even to be honest with you, I love Breath of the Wild, but part of me is almost, at least initially, was a little disappointed that this is the route they're going, because I do kind of love my classic, pure and simple and clean Zelda formula. And this is very much not that. It's bringing that open-endedness to it, where you can solve puzzles in multiple ways, and it's go about. I would be honestly surprised if they didn't keep it with the you can do any dungeon in any order sort of thing that we've got going recently. They're probably going to do that as well. So part of me does miss the classics, but also I can't deny they're doing something that is very unique and interesting here. So I'm definitely on board for it. Like the whole move you have, I can't remember what it's called, where she can attach objects and enemies to her to either move them around. Yes, bind.
Yeah.
Or have them move her, attach into a spider and it climbs up the wall and drags her up. It's very fascinating, and I just I hope that it's not too breakable. I think that's part of one of the strengths of Breath of the Wild, but I feel like if this game is too breakable, it might not have the same effect in 2D. But if it just builds off that to have really creatively designed, dungeons and puzzles, I think we're going to be in for a really fun game here. I mean, I'm definitely picking this one up at launch. It'll give me a nice something short and sweet to play after the Eternity Persona 5 is turning out for me. That's a story for another day. But I'm impressed by what we continue to see with this one, and it's only a month, so can't wait for it to come out.
Yeah, everything about it just looks good overall. There's really nothing much to complain about here. It's just nice to get a traditional Zelda game in there, and it's great to have Zelda as a main protagonist. And the only other interesting point we discussed was that it's very interesting not to have a sword, because of course, although every Zelda game gives you lots of really fun and interesting ways to attack, ultimately in almost every single Zelda game, most players just use the sword or the bow. Those are the two options, and Zelda doesn't seem to have a sword or a bow. I mean, I don't see why she can't summon one, but I guess she doesn't really know how to use either, particularly a sword.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see how the game goes when you don't have that default option. I suspect there'll probably be some equivalent that people find that everyone just sticks to, but until then, I think it's a really cool idea to not have a default.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's going to be telling with this is particularly if an enemy gets in close to you. Because usually, if an enemy gets in close, you attack with your sword and bounce them back. Whereas here, you can summon an enemy with a sword to fight for you, but that's not going to help you when they're right directly in front of you. So there must be some sort of like, I don't know, some sort of option where she like holds up like a magic shield and it bounces them back or something. That if an enemy gets in close to you.
Zelda's neutral special from Smash.
Yeah.
There
what's
you
it?
go. Nadra's something.
Yeah, Nehru's courage. No, Nehru's wisdom. That's it. Nehru's wisdom.
That's her Triforce.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that.
It's looking. They've definitely got options, and I feel like there's still a lot we haven't seen about this game. And given there's still a month till it comes out, we'll probably get another trailer at least. So it should be fun. But on to our next story here. Rather interesting thing is they gave us a kind of direct of sorts for the Nintendo Museum, which, I mean, I don't think we have much to say other than it looks cool because we're never going to make it to there. I mean, not only is it in Japan, I think there's like some whole lottery system to get tickets for it is how it works. So the odds of us ever getting to come through it are very low. But it's neat.
I mean, hey, look, we've got very, very big sort of influence in the world now, as you know. We've got that huge expanse of connections, so who knows, maybe we could get us in there, we can trade Samm away to sort of make a deal with the devil, and I think we're good.
Yeah, we can like sell him to Nintendo, and in exchange for some tickets, I'm sure they'll accept that arrangement. Whatever Samm thinks is relevant, yeah. But
absolutely, it looks great though. I really like it's sort of clean, but also like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of companies have remodeled themselves to look clean, and then it looks too boring. Nintendo look clean and interesting at the same time with this. They've got a really nice mix going. Yeah. So I really like that.
It's cool from just like the historical aspect, of course, of having all these different Nintendo consoles and gadgets, and even things before they made consoles, like the Hanafuda cards from Nintendo's history. But to not only do that, but just do the most Nintendo thing possible and make it interactive, where you've got like, you can use the Super Scope to actually play like a giant game of sort of like an original game of like shooting characters on this wall, or the giant controllers. I don't know if you saw that bit, where you can like play games with a giant Wii remote, and I want to do that so badly. I don't think...
Yeah, it looks great. Really looks great.
I think they don't have a giant Wii U gamepad, which is the only disappointment, because that would be hilarious. But or a giant Virtual Boy, where I guess you have one eye each, but then it isn't 3D anymore, so maybe not. But there's possibilities. And I'd imagine also, given its museum, they tend to rotate stock out. They'll like change exhibits over time and have new bits and stuff. So cool for anyone in Japan and can go to it at the very least.
Yeah, one day.
And at least for now, we're not short on content to play whilst we're here in the UK still, because we got an Indie World and a Partners Showcase duology, sort of both one after the other, which gave us, I mean, it's a lot of cool stuff. I feel like it's 90% remasters we got from these presentations, but a lot of them are cool, so I can't really complain. I'll hand it over to you, Kai. Is there anything that stood out to you from these presentations?
Surprisingly, quite a few. Like, none of them are probably worth talking about for more than 30 seconds. But yeah, like Bellatro, which I believe is like, I don't know the exact thing, but it's broken some records in terms of like Steam sales and stuff lately.
Yeah.
Or just in terms of like general popularity. It's a really, really popular game right now. So there was some DLC for that was announced, because I believe it was already on the Switch. Could be wrong. They announced like, a couple of other fun indie games like they do. I'm just running through the list to see what's on there. I mean, I'm not sure what date everything is, but I saw there was Doug, the overwhelming sense of existential dread, and I thought, okay.
You had me at Textbox Chan. Like, I respect that move. That is a bold design choice. So I'm not into dating games, but I kind of want to keep an eye on this one because it looks just fascinating. and it's got like a loads of like recognizable VAs in it involved as well.
Oh, really? Oh, God.
Yeah, I have to get up a list or something, but there's loads of like ones you'll recognize from various video games and anime. It's a lot of big names. I think they're even involved in development in some capacity, some of them. So it's
Oh, wow. Okay, nice.
it's gonna be a trip.
Yeah, so that was a really fun one. We also got Peglin. Peglin's a game I've been watching since like the original beta release, like years ago now. So it's cool that that's finally come to the Switch. It does make sense. It's kind of advanced that far. It's Peggle, but like a roguelike kind of game. Very, very fun. Pico Park 2. I feel like Pico Park could be a fun one for us to try at some point.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this series before. I don't recognize one.
Really?
No, I've never seen it before. But it looks really fun.
We've got to get you on that. Yeah, well, it's one of those like hate your friends kind of. I mean, that's even in the trailer. Actually, they mention that it's a hate your friends game. So we'll do that with Sam because we already do. So
this is true.
That's fine. Shovel Knight DLC was in there. That was great. What else have we got? Metal Slug Tactics, which we've already seen. A big one was Pizza Tower. Pizza Tower was another like really, really big fan favorite one.
That's been a long time coming, hasn't it? So it's kind of, even though I don't have much interest, given I'm not a big fan of the Wario Land series in the first place, which it's kind of a play on. But it's a big name to get, and like that is one to finish the Indie Direct with. Like they did that one perfectly, so. No complaints.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing, like starting with Balatro and ending with that. So fair on them.
Very well paced.
So the indie stuff was good, to be honest. It was a nice selection of interesting stuff. I feel like often, the issue that I've talked about previously is that we used to have the Earthbound inspired RPGs running rampant, and now I feel like it's turned into stylistic Hollow Knight style games. Which they always look good, don't get me wrong, but like there's so many of them, and I don't think we had many of those in this one, which was nice.
Definitely very
so overall that was good. And it's very nice to go straight from that into the partner showcase.
Yeah, and like
it's a very nice transition.
The big one for me from the partner showcase was the Castlevania DS collection, because that's just those are like regarded as like the best games in the series. So I really want to check those out. It's shadow dropped as well. It's worth mentioning how many games like Pizza Tower, etc., were just shadow dropped today. So those indie fans are eating right now. But
they're having a great time.
Yeah, and I still need to play the Castlevania Game Boy Advance collection. I haven't got that one yet, so it's onto the backlog, of course. But that was probably the most hype one for me. Like I really enjoyed what I played of the series. I really want to get to those. Sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Anything?
Yeah,
for you?
they look good. There was a couple. Goat Simulator 3's on there. That's always fun.
Yeah.
A couple of other bits. Star Wars Hunters. Which I know nothing about.
I actually play. It's sort of like a Overwatch kind of character shooter game. Free to play. I did play a bit of it. When it first dropped.
Nice.
It's actually quite fun. It's just not my genre, because any game that requires, sort of going back to like doing your dailies or whatever, that kind of thing, I zone out quickly. But it actually played really fun. Like it's a solid performing game.
Okay, nice. It's a good little extra bit then, yeah. There was a SpongeBob game, the Patrick Star game. I didn't know this existed before this, I'll be honest.
Well, it was a new announcement, except for the fact that it leaked. So you might... I've heard the leak. But it's weird, because again, this is another one where I have an interest in being a huge, one most likely to live in a pineapple under the sea in my school yearbook. Always bring that one back up. But I still haven't played the last game, the Cosmic Shake. And this one seems interesting, where rather than being like a collectathon platformer, it seems to be like a sandbox physics-based platformer kind of game, doing physics-based shenanigans. It almost looks kind of Goat Simulator in that kind of way.
Really? That's great.
I'm not sure exactly how much that'll be the case. That's sort of the impression I got. So it doesn't appeal to me as much as like a pure platformer, but it does look fun. So it's definitely one I'm going to be checking out reviews and keeping an eye on, given my reputation.
That is great. We had loads though. There was Fitness Boxing Free, so you can fitness box for the third time. I know you're very into that.
I mean, I got so good at it, they won't let me play him anymore. I'm just too fit, they said, so...
yeah, you beat it. That's why they released the third one, so you had another one to beat, because you already beat the first two.
Yeah, but you see, my uncle works at Nintendo, so I already beat it, in the beta, so it's...
Okay, I get it.
They have to release a fourth one, which I'm sure they will at this point.
At this point, yeah. So we had that. We had some Capcom stuff, some Marvel versus Capcom stuff, which is always nice to have.
Lots of fighting game stuff.
Yeah, Dragon Quest III HD 2D. That's always fun. Suikoden, I want to call it, although I don't know if I'm saying that right.
I think that's right. That's a series I've wanted to try out sometime.
Yeah.
Add it to the list.
Tales of Graces is on there.
Yeah.
Sims, Five Nights at Freddy's. Oh.
I know our friend
Just Dance 2025. There's so many.
Game of the Year every year. I know our friend.
Oh wait, there were two different ones. Oh no, there was only one Five Nights at Freddy's.
He did appear in the Funko Pop game though, so you might be thinking of that as well.
Oh no, there were two. I stand corrected. They did announce two different ones for some reason. And
I know our friend Gabe's excited for the Trails in the Sky. I think it's a remake of the first game, which, I mean, that's sort of like a long-going series that I'm always too intimidated to play because there are like 50 entries in it. But given it's a remake of the first game, if there's going to be a starting point, that's probably it. So that's what I'm interested in. Okay,
that's cool. Yeah, we've got loads on here though. All of that sort of stuff. Rune Factory was one of the big ones they announced near the end. I don't know anything about Rune Factory, but it had a really long trailer, so I'm assuming it's like popular in some way. I think I've heard of it before.
I know the name, and that's about it, but probably popular.
Farming sim and RPG, probably.
True.
And then the big one to end it off, because I probably have less to talk about on this one, is Yakuza. They announced one of the Yakuza games to be on the Switch now, which is really cool. I think that's really, really cool. So,
it is really cool. I do feel like... yeah, I do feel like maybe if it's going to be like your last hype announcement, I think maybe it should have been a bit bigger than just like a port of a game that is already available on other modern consoles. Just sort of like... I feel like it would have been cooler if, at the very least, if it's like, oh look, Yakuza 1 to 5 are coming on Switch, and a bundle of all of them.
Right.
But one port of a game, it feels like, I was like, oh, that's it. I was expecting maybe something a bit cooler. But, like, having this accessible to more people, I'd want to get into the series at some point, as well as the many others I've already listed. Dear God, time. But it is still cool to see come into the Switch, no doubt.
Yeah, I think out of all the ones they had available, that was probably the best one to put at the end. So
yeah, I think so.
Not necessarily the wrong choice, just that's the selection they had.
Yeah.
But yeah, that looks really fun, so, I've always wanted to try the series out and see what happens, so there we go, something to look at.
Yeah, I think overall, like, this wasn't, like, the best partner showcase. It was up there, I think. There wasn't anything specific to me. I've had directs or indie showcases that have something more specific to, like, this is a game I want to pick up. But I think in terms of, like, overall pacing and having the variety, I think this is some of their strongest of the side stuff that they've had. So, I thought it was a good showcase all around. Yeah,
I agree. And then the one part that was in there I hadn't mentioned that had also been announced previously was Civ 7.
Oh, yes, of course.
That's like a big game announcement, and, I know we cover mainly Nintendo stuff, but it's not entirely, and I've played a lot of Civ 7. Civ 6, sorry. Oh, I wish I'd played Civ 7 already.
So you have an uncle working at a games company as well, Kai. Wow.
Mm-hmm. My uncle is Sid Meier. So yeah, that's been announced. And yeah, it's a really interesting one, because we knew it was coming eventually. Civ 6 was hugely successful, really good stuff, and Civ 7 was something people were looking forward to.
Yeah.
And it's a tricky one, because it's such a huge game that balancing and, like, making it fun is really, really tough.
I can imagine.
Like, how do you manage everything in that, all those intricate game mechanics and all of that, and how do you make it new at the same time while also not ruining it?
Yeah.
A huge job for them that I believe they're still working on. So, I thought it was really good though overall. I had a lot of positive thoughts about it. I will, like, briefly cover the things they've changed, but of course won't go into too much detail.
Go for it.
Is originally, like normally in the Civ games, you choose one one leader who is attached to a Civ. So, for example, Queen Elizabeth for England or Teddy Roosevelt for America. And you played as that leader in Civ for the whole game with its unique perks of whatever kind. They've changed that now so that across the course of the game you play as 3 different Civs depending on the time period. So it's not like you're playing as Gandhi in the modern era, and you're not playing as any like modern leaders back in the ancient era. They've actually made it locked to certain eras.
That's interesting.
So across the course of the game, you will evolve your Civ into a different one entirely. And you get to choose what you evolve it into based on historical factors. So let's say, for example, like the Civ options you'll get are like, one will be geographically near you. One will be like based on your play style will be the most similar, and they'll give you that option. And they might give you a third option based on the things you've achieved in the game up to that point. So it kind of gives you all options that you think, yeah, that makes sense as like a reasonable evolution. So it kind of breaks the game up pretty clearly into 3 separate parts because we know how long those games are.
Yeah.
It's quite a nice way of doing it. And then the other thing, which was really crazy to me, is the civilization you're a part of and the leader you have are now no longer the same. So, for example, you can now have a American Queen Elizabeth and a British Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so like there's really big stuff like that, and outside of the obvious visual upgrades, which look great, and I fear for my computer's lifespan.
Yeah.
Overall, there's just they just made a lot of other changes, like minorly, to sort of make the game unique. The visual upgrades, like I say, are really good. And overall, I think the way I'd sum up this game's projections are that it's kind of scary, in the sense that these are huge, huge changes, and for all we know, they might suck. It might just not flow well, and it's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
But it's good that they're taking the steps to like make it unique, and I believe that there is more than enough capacity for this to be really fun.
Yeah.
We'll just have to see when it comes out. Like, we don't know, so it's worrying, but there's absolutely a very good chance that it's really fun. So, that will come out. It'll be £60, I think, and we'll wait for a Steam summer sale to buy it on offer and do some multiplayer games. I don't doubt a lot of us.
That's cool. I think it definitely makes sense that if you're going to make a new game, justify it being a new game rather than just an update for 6. Have these new mechanics, even if they don't turn out amazing. It's better to take the risks, I think. And stuff like having it work like how actual civilizations build, which is they change cultures over time. Britain was overtaken by the Roman Empire for parts of it for a little bit, and it affected by that, and that sort of element of it. Having it build culture is kind of feels like more interesting, both like conceptually and also from gameplay wise, I'd imagine. So as someone who has zero familiarity with Civ, like that sounds pretty cool. So it's looking really good, and I'm sure they'll give more updates as time goes on. Yeah.
And when it comes out, I will eventually buy it, and I'll probably end up talking about it. So we'll see what happens as time goes on, but looks good.
Yeah, and speaking of looking good, let's move on to our next topic here. Well, a specific trailer we got the same day, which was Sonic 3, the movie. Keanu Reeves is in there. He's Shadow the Hedgehog. He's not even doing a voice because he doesn't need to. He just needs to speak like Keanu Reeves, and it works.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah, it's a very interesting one. So I've not seen Sonic 2 yet, but we did see Sonic 1.
Yeah, you should see Sonic 2.
So I might be missing a little bit. Yeah, I'll get around to it. But yeah, I am missing a little bit of the lore, but it's like, it doesn't matter. So, it looks great. Yeah, the whole Shadow thing is obviously a really cool thing. The Keanu Reeves announcement was really recent. Great fit, I believe. Mm-hmm. Animation's great as usual. It's just looking good. It's good to see that we're still in this era of good video game movies. Yeah,
we've come a long way from the first trailer and meow and the breakdown that caused the internet to have. So it's. And I think one thing, like, if you've, having watched the trailer, Kai, and I know the last movie you saw was the first movie, it's quite clear how much more gamified this is. Whereas the first one was like a buddy cop movie with Sonic in there, you know. This is like full on Sonic being Sonic. You got the full Sonic team, now Shadow's there, crazy plots with Gun. We saw Maria in there, and you know, a bunch of cinemas about to pop off as a like 10-year-old kid gets killed. Of course, it's just the Sonic fandom, but I'm intrigued by this one. It looks like they're going all in on on just making it feel more like Sonic, like they did for the second film. And even like the little tease of live and learn we get in like the music there, they better have like the full song playing at like the final moment of the film where they both go full on supersonic or whatever, you know. If they do that, it's
orchestral version.
Yes.
Calling it now orchestral live and learn. I breathe for that.
Please, but I want to hear orchestral version, but then like have the vocals kicking at like a hype bit as well, or something like. They have an opportunity to make this perfect, and that's probably the biggest complaint. Although Sonic 2 did a lot more to make it feel like the games, they still didn't incorporate the music in like the same way the Mario movie did. So that's just like the final hurdle to make this perfect. But either way, it's looking great. It looks like it's going to be fun, and we were just talking before this, like, you know, maybe a December meetup for us to go see this. So it's on the radar.
Yeah, it's really good, and I think it's kind of a masterful thing that they've done with this trilogy, where you know, kick it off at the very beginning with terrible trailer that no one likes, and the quality's obviously terrible.
Yeah,
they come back and like revamp it, and everyone's like, "Wow, this is good." And then you think, well, the first movie was very much like, it wasn't very Sonic-y. You could have replaced Sonic with any mascot and it would have been a standard movie.
Yeah.
But it's approachable. That's how you make it approachable, by doing a cool buddy cop movie that was very enjoyable. And then, you know, as the movies go on, they sort of slowly lean more and more into the game side. So that, you know, the fans are like, yes, this is what we've been waiting for. It builds up that hype. It's very ballsy to go, like, the entire trilogy kind of just getting closer slowly towards it, rather than just being full on, like, you know, video gamey from the start. But I think it is kind of masterful in terms of getting that audience by making it more broad and then bringing them into this with all the references. I think that's a really cool way of doing it.
Very true, and we are now one step closer to Big the Cat live action and Froggy. So fingers crossed. I do wonder if we'll see any more character cameos in this one. Obviously, Shadow's the big new character, but now we've got things like, you know, of course, Jim Carrey's back, just being absolutely batshit insane as Dr. Eggman, and as well as playing Dr. Eggman's granddad, or might be dad in this version. But yeah, like, just let him loose, and it's going to be fun. But maybe we'll see some other cameos as well. It'll be interesting to see where the series goes from here. But it's promising. It's very promising.
Yeah.
And last bit of news, which is just a me thing that I saw announced like just a few hours ago. Croc, Legend of the Gobbos, is getting a remaster. Where are my Croc fans at? My OG PS1 Croc fans. It's not a good game, but it's a nostalgic game. And maybe I'll actually beat it. I mean, the remaster looks like it's just the exact same, but slightly shinier graphics. It doesn't even look that remastered. But I'm still gonna get it. Like, this is one of the first video games I ever played. So, let me know in the comments.
I have no idea what this is, but it looks fun.
Tell you what, Kai, next time we do like a meetup, we'll have you play the entirety of Croc. That's,
oh god.
I think that's fair.
Miserable.
It's either Croc or Astral Chain, you have to pick one. So...
Let's do it.
There we go. There's one way to get you on board. But yeah, that's a me thing. But do let me know if anyone else is a Croc fan, because I've seen a few of my friends in our chat like be mentioning it since then. I'm like, yes, I feel validated here. But that'll be it for this month. So let's move on to our final segment of the podcast, Games Time Baby, where we talk over the games we've been playing. And I've been playing Persona 5, and I'm still no way near finished. So whilst I think of what I want to mention, Kai, do you have a game you've been playing this month?
I do. I mean, Persona 5 is such a big game, you could probably do a first half and second half discussion, and we'll just make the second half spoilery.
Honestly, not a bad shout. I might do that actually, but you go with yours first.
I mean, I've just got the one as the big one. I mean, I will mention first, I finished Blazing Blade now.
Oh yeah.
Actually, more recently than the one I'm going to talk about. But yeah, I finished it. It was fun. Thank goodness for Rewind, because I would not have played past like the first 5 chapters without it.
Yeah.
But yeah, really fun game. And to be honest, this is something I'll talk more about in a minute. But like, I feel like we could have like a full. I could do like a 10-part, like hour each session long discussion about Fire Emblem doing world building and like how that all works, especially in those older games, because I found it really interesting. But yeah, fun game. That's done. Outside of that, I finished my first route of Fire Emblem 3 Hopes that I've been playing.
Yes.
Played a lot of it while I was on holiday, and I've specifically played Golden Wildfire, so I will get around to playing the other routes, but I won't be talking about them yet. And this is also a route that you've played, so you're familiar with it.
Very much so. I mean, it's been a few years, but it's coming back to me.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? It's interesting how the game works, and I won't go into spoilers, I guess, because we'll play it safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really interesting game. Off the bat, the gameplay is fun. I know a lot of people don't like Warriors gameplay, and I've seen a lot of people say that they would despise a Xenoblade Warriors because they don't like Warriors games. Personally, I really like Warrior gameplay. It's like really simple, turn your brain off, / strong attack. But, I like that. I feel like the fun more so comes into like your tactics on where you move your characters.
Very much so, yeah.
Which this game leans into a lot, which is really good. Yeah, just overall the vibe. I really liked the vibe. Like I said, the gameplay was really fun, and I like every character having their own little sort of unique element, and then having general classes to encapsulate them all. So that was fun.
It definitely continues the Age of Calamity trend of making the Warriors game feel like its source game in terms of how they implemented mechanics and the class system and all that, which I really appreciated in this game.
Oh yeah, they absolutely mastered making it feel like the original, like in UI and everything. It's so clever how they do that. So yeah, really impressed with all of that. I think the thing that really got me was the world building in terms of it expanded on a lot of stuff like the original 3 houses, and again, this is a topic I'll get onto in a bit. But one particular part I really liked in this one that the original didn't do as much is it's not just half the game in a monastery, half the game elsewhere. Every chapter you're going to a different place, and you're actually defeating enemies in these like side battles in different pieces of land across Fodlan.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was really cool, how it's like, oh, we're actually going to this territory for the first time, or this territory. And even though it's all basically the same reused maps, and I think they could have done with a couple of more, I did still really like that idea of you're constantly moving to different places to keep it interesting. I love how it expanded on 3 houses and kind of got all the intro stuff out of the way very quickly of like, yep, monastery, yep, done, okay, yep, let's move on to the interesting stuff, so that you actually got a full game of new content.
Yeah.
I really like how they explored different facets that the original didn't. For example, the relationship with Elmira is looked into a lot in the Golden Wildfire route, whereas in the original it was like, it was there, but only really as a side thought when it could have been a lot bigger.
Agreed.
Characterizations of characters was great. Like, I mean, we've talked about this before, but Lawrence
they did him so
went
well
from being completely insufferable to being like, okay, he's still flawed now, but you can like him now.
They did.
He's not just hitting on everyone.
Yeah, that's a good change.
Yeah, and then also all the stuff with Claude. I feel like Claude was a lot more interesting in this, because in the original he ended up, he was the schemer at first, and then very quickly turned into sort of power of friendship protagonist, I felt.
Yes, I agree.
And I was thinking that's the opposite. Like, he's the underhanded tactics guy, and he's kind of just... I as much as I think Golden Deer is the best route in the original, I kind of don't like how seamlessly he just did everything in that game. And I like how in this one they do sort of more embrace the fact of like, no, this house isn't as strong as the others. They need to do different things. I really liked that. So, all the characters though had really cool stuff. It was great to see Holst and everything in the
Holst is so good.
Route.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was all great. The music was great. I enjoyed a lot of that. I suppose they could have done with more songs, but I really liked the ones that they did do. Warriors games always seem to knock that out of the park.
Very true.
And yeah, at the end of the day, it just comes down to the story. Is like, yeah, it was interesting. Like I say, explored loads of new ideas, brilliant. Went into some new stuff, went completely different directions to what I thought. I'll talk with you about this afterwards, but my thoughts on where the story was going to go and bits like that. But it didn't go in the direction I thought. And it's great to be able to sort of see Byleth as an opponent rather than as the protagonist, and then you get a new protagonist.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
I love and you see this in like the trailers, but seeing her using her like rewind time ability from a third-person perspective as she like warps around and stuff. It's actually terrifying to be against. Like, oh, this is how it feels.
Yeah, I think they did that great, especially with Byleth's lore in the original. I feel like they really got that right. And on top of that, as much as a lot of people don't like Byleth as the protagonist, I feel like they actually work way, way better as a sort of pseudo-antagonist. And then having Shez be in the front seat is great. Because I don't think Shez is like... I wouldn't call Shez like an S-tier protagonist. Because they don't do anything overly interesting. But having a protagonist that at least talks and reciprocates and has a personality is really good.
And it's, like you say with Byleth, like, they gave Byleth, like, actual lines and a personality in this game around, so it works on both fronts, and having a good protagonist and Byleth be interesting as well, to some level, so definitely a big step up. I'm glad they did this, they took that lesson, and with Engage, having, like, a voice protagonist as well. I'm glad they kept learning from that.
Yeah, and like the choice to make the protagonist, like a mercenary, I think is quite cool. Mercenaries they're around quite a lot in the Fire Emblem games, especially Three Houses. You always basically play as these stuffy lords, so it's nice that you're actually playing as someone who's like, sort of, just a bit more head-on with everything.
True.
Who also speaks and then, has a lot of like interesting bits about themselves, unique stuff for them. So I really liked that Shez as a protagonist. I think the main thing that just fell flat for me was sort of as you near the end of the story. I think they make some decisions about where it ends that do surprise you. You get a bit of shock at the end of like, that's it. Okay.
It feels a bit like they ran out of time in development doing all three routes and had to be like, okay, I guess we just got to cut them short than we intended. Yeah. I don't know if that's the truth, but it kind of feels that way.
No, I agree, it does. I got to the end of the route and I was like, I mean, I knew it was going to be a bit abrupt because you'd kind of mentioned it. But I didn't realise how abrupt it would be.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, okay, I've done that. Like I said, I was thinking normally the epilogue's like, 20 minutes. And I was thinking maybe it'll be 5, and it was like 1.
Yeah.
That was a really odd one. But overall, I mean, as much as the ending wasn't amazing, I love that they sort of did more with the world. I really like that the game exists for a start. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I will be coming back to it for more. And I guess if I briefly touch on the discussion point, but to be honest, with time, I'll probably go into this more another time if we really run out of topics, is the thing with Fire Emblem, particularly Three Houses and Three Hopes, but the other games do it as well, is it tried building up such a huge amount of world building. Through all of Three Hopes, all the different houses and the dynamics and the personalities and how all of those work. They did all of that, and that's brilliant. It's great to have that world building.
Yeah.
But quite simply, one game isn't enough, especially in the original Fire Emblem format, to explore all of those topics, and it ends up with Three Houses really feeling off in a lot of ways in hindsight, because it's like, just a lot of the early chapters are trying to give you lore, but it's so fragmented that it doesn't really work.
A lot of loose ends.
And Three Hopes, and Three Hopes ties up some of those loose ends, which is nice. Addresses things. You get to talk to Count Gloucester, for example, who was kind of a big force in Three Houses that they never had time to show.
That's true.
So I really like that, but even after Three Houses, I feel like Some stuff you still feel like it's a little bit short, but I really like how they did take advantage of that. And, I do feel like it's really great how Fire Emblem does that world building. And it almost made me think like, oh, if they made a Fire Emblem Three Houses open world game, then it would be perfect, but it would also be the size of Elder Scrolls 6, which is not coming out until 2028 or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's the scale we're talking about in terms of the lore and how they could expand even further. Is if they made it an open world game, they would have so much material to work with. I think it would be genuinely like a Game of the Year kind of thing.
Yeah.
But alas, that's not how Fire Emblem works, and they probably knew going into it that they didn't need to elaborate on everything. That's just my thoughts. Brilliant game, but it's not stopped me thinking since about how they deal with the world building and how they expand on all of it. It's been stuck in my head for a long time now.
Yeah, you could easily get another game in the Three Houses world and still have loads of things to explore. It's definitely, there's depth to it, but you just don't get to explore it all. And, I say this again as someone who hasn't done all the routes. I've only done 2 in Three Houses. My next up, I want to do the Blue Lions in Three Hopes at some point. But, given the current state of games, that's not going to be anytime soon. So it's on the list. But, I'll definitely be interested to see what you think if you get to those before me. How you enjoy the other routes and how they compare.
Yeah, I'll be sure to talk about them, and to be honest, that'll probably be where I talk about the world building more. That's like a good time to do it.
Very true, yeah. And I guess I'll end things off here. I think I'll take your advice, actually, and I'll talk a little bit about Persona 5, where I'm at, which is about 80 hours into the game, and still not done. Casino is what I'm going to say to give an idea to anyone listening.
Yes.
So I get the feeling that I'm only just starting things and things are going to get real. But it's been really fun. This has obviously been such a well-regarded game for years, and all I've been able to experience of it is Joker and Smash, because the game wasn't on the console. And then when it did come to the console, well, I'm already going through my notorious backlog I've mentioned 5 times this video already. So it wasn't coming anytime soon until I just sort of impulse bought it. When I didn't enjoy playing Horizon, watch our previous video if you want more on that. But I was like, yeah, you know what? It's on sale. I've got gold coins. Let's buy Persona 5. Let's dig into this 150-hour game. And yeah, I can see why it's got its reputation. It's good. The whole social system to it of going by day to day is very reminiscent, from my perspective, to Three Houses. Funnily enough, it's got that kind of vibe of, you've got your limited time, you choose who you want to spend it with, who you want to build up relationships with. If you want to spend time just pissing about in the batting cages, you can do that too. And it's sort of been fun. I really enjoy the time management aspect of it. That's always been really fun. Not to mention, of course, the gameplay's good. Having your different personas, being able to switch between them. I love the baton pass system, and it's so satisfying. Taking advantage of an element and passing it on, and then finishing them all with an all-out attack. Admittedly, and I think it's been made easier than it was in the OG game. It means I am basically sweeping through the dungeons or the palaces. Basic enemies rarely even do damage to me. Bosses, however, because you can't do that exactly on bosses, those are a threat, and they can kick my ass sometimes. But the gameplay at its core is fun, and obviously what it's most known for and what carries it the entire way is just the presentation of it all. The sort of red and black aesthetic throughout, the music, always vibing. Particularly the casino has a god tier soundtrack in there. But the whole way through, it's just a joy to just sort of sit back and play. And I find where sometimes I want to do things on the big screen, it also works really well on the Switch, where if I'm just sort of grinding through Mementos or something, or I'm just sort of chilling out, I've finished a palace and I'm just wanting to go through my social stuff, it's very nice to just chill in handheld. It runs very well on the Switch in handheld. It's not like a graphical powerhouse, it's all in the visual design more so. So it works really well to just sort of chill back in the evenings and sort out some of the confidants and all that, and I'm just having a great time with it. So far, story-wise, it's been fun. Nothing ridiculously impressive has happened, but I feel as I go into what I assume is maybe the final third of the game, that sort of vibe, I think things are gonna, shit's gonna hit the fan, and I'm very intrigued to when that happens and how things are gonna go down. I will definitely have thoughts next month. If I finish it next month, because it's a bloody long game, but that's my goal. So we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Like, it's one of those where it's so built up where it's possible it just doesn't live up to the hype, but no, it's matching that and surpassing it in some ways. So very much enjoying my time with it, even if it's taken up my life.
Absolutely, it's a real mammoth of a game, but it does do a lot of good. You know, the overall system of going around daily to do things is great with the confidants. I think that's a very neat way of building up all of the characters in your own time. Being able to choose, brilliant. You know, the palace thing and having the freedom to do that when you want, great. Like, you know, the core story has a lot to it. You know, obviously the music, the battles are fun. Like, it does do pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And the only cost that really comes at is that it's like a huge game that takes forever to beat. That's the only real downside to it.
Yeah. But I mean, it says something that I keep forgetting. Like, I don't feel like I'm 80 hours into it. Sometimes I'm playing a game like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth I talked about earlier this year. I love that game. So much of it was awesome. But by the time I was at like finishing the game at like the 80-hour mark, I was really burning out and like, I just want this to end. It went on too long. It was drawn out. Whereas this game, I'm over 80 hours. I've got even more of the game left. I'm not even in like the final section, I don't think. But still, I'm not feeling tired of it, and I don't feel like I've spent that much time in it because it's just built in a way that's really satisfying. Like, so, although it's very true that some games these days overstay their welcome, there are some games that just earn that length because they make the most out of each minute of it, and this is one of those. And the only thing I forgot to mention as well is like really strong cast of characters. Like, they're all really fun. The dynamic between them is great, and really good like writing and voice acting. Just from the get-go, and as every new character comes, there's not like a weak link. Even in the confidants, like even in the smaller side characters you get, I'm really enjoying their little arcs as you build up with them. So, yeah, this is a masterpiece of a game, and I doubt my opinion is going to go anywhere but higher up, given the next month of playing. But we'll see.
Yeah, it is like a really good sort of all-encompassing game. So you know, you've got that, and you know that Mishima voice actor. We should get him on the podcast at some point. You know,
he should. You know, I think he'd maybe have some interesting things to say. Yeah,
yeah.
Trust me.
But also, I will say, now that you've started playing the game, I hate to break it to you, you are no longer qualified to be a Persona 5 fan because you've played the game.
That's true.
So.
Maybe
sorry,
next time.
that's the only thing. Them's the breaks. You know how it is. But yeah, it's cool.
That's how it goes. But I can now at least recognise Persona 5 in everything else I see, even down to the voice actors now. I can at least have that aspect of it nailed. But
True.
It has been fun, and that is probably it for the month. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening to this podcast. Of course, you can find us here on BunchaJokahs first Sunday of each month for our regular discussions, as well as random extra discussions and reactions and gameplay videos in the middle of the month, either here on YouTube for videos and everything basically, but audio-only versions of the podcasts can be found on Spotify and other podcasting sites. And Kai, where else can people find you at?
Twitch.tv/Fascurreyn, playing through Ni no Kuni 2 at the moment. Yeah, it's good. It's fun, and I will probably talk about things more because I yap on there.
He does indeed. I can confirm. I've been to far too many of his. It's once you start, you can't stop. It's like a weird addiction. So I'm still here after all these years. But that is it then. So of course there'll be a link in the description below to Kai's channel, and we hope to see you guys in the next video. Take care and goodbye.
See ya.
Yippee!